Is John Kerry incompetent when it comes to handling the crisis in the Middle East? Plus, we're less than 100 days until the midterm elections. Find out what's key to conservatives winning in November. All of these stories and more coming up on The Rundown.
All right, stand by. 10 seconds.
Ready, camera,
Ready, camera,
record. 3, 2, 1.
Record.
Thanks so much for joining us. This is The Rundown, where we take a look at some of the big stories making headlines. I'm your host, John Phillips. Joining us from Washington, D.C. is PJTV contributor Michelle Fields. And here in studio, we're joined by stand-up comic Stephen Cruiser. Now it's time to go to the top of the rundown, and we begin with Mr. Cruiser.
The top of my rundown, the Obama administration is upset that John Kerry's incompetence is being called out by Israel. Kerry has been trying to achieve a ceasefire between Israel and Hamas to no avail. Israel says Kerry has been misreading the situation and has been giving in to the demands of Hamas while not doing enough to defend Israel. National Security Advisor Susan Rice says that's not the case. Some in Israel have labeled Kerry as nebbish, a Yiddish word for pitifully ineffectual person. This is not going well. Even the Washington Post said yesterday, everyone agrees on one thing: John Kerry blew it. Not that he failed, not that he didn't. That was the Washington Post. Okay, this administration has a bad history with our staunchest allies. You know, we gave up the missile defense shield in Poland. There have been a series of missteps with Great Britain, and now this hot mess with Israel right now. And usually strategic concerns will prevail. Everything will get nice once the personalities change. Are we looking maybe at irrevocable damage now?
Well, one of the things that President Obama promised if he got elected was, we're going to make the other countries in the world like us. All the people that hate our guts out there, all the people that were dancing in the streets when the towers were brought down on 9/11, I'm going to make those people like us because I'm a different type of president. Well, not only do those people hate us just as much now as they did back then, but the people who used to like us are now starting to hate our guts, and in many cases for good reason, because we have allies that we've had these relationships with these countries for decades upon decades upon decades. And now it's clear that when push comes to shove, we're going to leave them out to dry.
Yeah.
The other thing that's important about this is, oh my gosh, did we dodge a bullet by not having John Kerry elected president in 2004? Look how incompetent this guy is. Could you imagine? I mean, he's just the middle manager now. Can you imagine if he was the dude calling the shots?
No, then I'd be on my way to Iceland right now. Michelle, let's play a little what if. What if Hillary Clinton were still the head of Secretary of State? Would she be doing a markedly better job than John Kerry and perhaps even bolstering her chances for 2016? Or has the relationship become so toxic between Netanyahu and Obama that nobody could really do anything?
I think at this point, anyone's better than Kerry. I do think Hillary would probably be doing a better job. And she certainly wouldn't respond the way that Kerry has in terms of the criticism. Kerry seems like he has such thin skin. I mean, he's getting criticism, yes. Well, when people are critiquing you, well, why don't you work harder and deliver? Instead, what he's having is basically the State Department whine about the situation and President Obama whine about it. We just look as a country so thin-skinned that a couple anonymous sources and in papers in Israel say things about Kerry, and then all of a sudden everyone's, oh, poor Kerry, please don't hurt his feelings. We look pathetic. But I think the problem is that Kerry's main goal right now is to just get a short-term solution. He just wants this fixed as soon as possible, which is understandable, but you also have to think about, well, what does Israel want? What is it that they're trying to achieve? And he doesn't care about that. He's just trying to patch it up and get it off his hands as soon as possible. And that's just not going to work.
All right, Michelle, what do you have for us?
At the top of my rundown, bad news for Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Here in the United States, just 25% of 18 to 29-year-olds think Israel's actions in the Gaza Strip are justified. Benjamin Netanyahu went on Fox News Sunday about the escalating violence.
Gaza officials say now that more than 1,000 Palestinians, the vast majority of them civilians, have been killed. International opposition to your operation, as you well know, is growing. Is that not a concern to you? And what about the protests, even riots on the West Bank? Are you concerned at all about a third intifada or uprising there?
Well, first, I know that's what Hamas is trying to do. They're trying to instigate violence in the West Bank as well, and we expect President Abbas to do what he can to, and what is responsible for, to keep the quiet on that front, because Hamas just wants that to blow up as well. As far as the civilian casualties, I have to tell you, each one of them is a tragedy. We don't want a single civilian tragedy. We're not targeting a single civilian. And every time you see these pictures, they're heartbreaking. But why is it happening? It's happening because Hamas is firing 25,000 rockets on our cities. They're attacking us with terror tunnels dug into our territory. They're attacking us by land, sea, and air. And obviously, we have to respond. When we respond, Hamas, we are trying to minimize the civilians. We tell civilian casualties. We tell the civilians, leave. Hamas tells them to stay. Why does it tell them to stay? Because it wants to pile up these civilian casualties. So any of these regrettable, tragic civilian casualties should be placed at the responsibility of Hamas. Hamas is a terror organization, ruthless terrorist organization, that not only wants to kill our people, it wants to sacrifice its own people. It uses them as human shields, and therefore it should be blamed and not Israel.
You know, I didn't find this poll that surprising, and the reason why is if you're looking at sort of the media landscape right now during this crisis, if you look at the internet seems to be very sympathetic towards Palestine, towards Hamas, and a lot of young people get their internet, their news through the internet, through Twitter, through Facebook, and you're constantly seeing articles posted, videos from Jon Stewart that's sympathetic towards Palestine. What do you guys think? Were you surprised at all by this poll?
Well, every once in a while, you'll see the left flip sides on a subject that they used to care about and used to be on decidedly one side. One that comes to mind is illegal immigration. I mean, you look at the left's former position on it. The unions hated it because illegal immigration broke the unions. And in many cases, the private sector unions are still suffering from the wave of migrants that came across the border. Cesar Chavez used to be against illegal immigration because he understood what it did to the legal immigrants that came here. But at a certain point, the left just decided, you know what? Let's go ahead and switch our allegiances because these people are poor and the other people have money, and people with money clearly are doing something evil, and poor people are clearly the aggrieved party, so our allegiance is with them. So they just flip sides. It happened, I think, in the 80s, really, and you're seeing this happen here. Let's go back to the Democratic Convention when former LA Mayor Antonio Villaraigosa was chairman of the convention, was up on the stage, and they were voting in Jerusalem and God into the Democratic Party platform, and he got booed off the stage. He got voted down and booed off the stage. The left has switched sides. Israel is a state that was created by Harry Truman, and because of that, Jews have been voting for Democrats for generations. But at some point, the left decided, all right, the Palestinians are the aggrieved party, our allegiance is with them, and there's, frankly, a big disconnect between elected representatives in Washington, D.C. on the left and the people that vote for them. You saw it happen on stage with Villaraigosa. Jane Harman, who was a longtime congresswoman and a big-time player for the Democrats on the Foreign Relations Committee, she would get it all the time. Howard Berman would get it all the time. And frankly, you're going to see a changing of the guard with the next generation of Democrats where they're going to be openly hostile to Israel. Now they have to pay lip service and they have to play both sides of the coin. The next generation of Democrats isn't going to bother to do that. And
part of the bitter irony about what you just mentioned there about being openly hostile is that our growing energy independence will be able to fuel that a little bit too, and pun not intended there, I'm sorry. But because, you know, one of the biggest strategic concerns there has been they've been our only ally in the middle of the oil-rich Middle East so far, and I think that will actually help distance them. But the most disheartening thing about this is it shows just how adept in the modern media era the Democrats have become at the politics of emotion and just pimping pure emotion and nothing else. This Hamas is, you got Nancy Pelosi coming out yesterday. They're a humanitarian organization. Just stop already with that. But they're so good at this now. They're so good at manipulating the media that they're making young people believe, oh yeah, these Hamas guys just stand-up dudes, wonderful guys. And
well, they're doing the same thing with MS-13 at the border.
Yes, it's just they've gotten dangerously good at this, which means that once it becomes pure propaganda, I don't know, I'm not going to harken back to any historical examples because I don't want to go there right away, but you know, some of the more dangerous regimes of the 20th century came about just through pure propaganda like that.
Well, they hate people in power more than they hate MS-13 or Hamas. They do.
Yet they're working out their own issues because they are the people in power here. They've got this.
Yes.
They've got this cognitive dissonance that they're working through, and we are the ones who are bearing the ills of that cognitive dissonance.
But make no mistake, they hate the Israeli government and they hate the American military more than they hate those two groups.
Yes.
All right, time to move to the top of my rundown, where Republican Senate candidate Scott Brown has a new TV ad taking aim at Democratic Senator Jeanne Shaheen's immigration policies. Brown, a former Massachusetts senator, is now running in New Hampshire against the incumbent Shaheen. He's the frontrunner for the GOP nomination. Let's go ahead and take a look at the ad.
I'm Scott Brown, and I approve this message. Americans go through security before they get on a plane, enter a government building, or attend a ball game. But folks who come here illegally, they just walk across the border. That's wrong. Thanks to the pro-amnesty policies of President Obama and Senator Shaheen, we have an immigration crisis on our hands. We respond with compassion, but it's time for us to secure the border once and for all, and tell people who try to come here illegally that we intend to enforce the law.
I think this is a great ad. I think this is exactly the issue that he should be going after her on. There's a new poll out today saying that a majority of Americans want to send the kids at the border back home to El Salvador and Honduras and Guatemala. If you look at these numbers, particularly if you take the Southwest out of it, which demographically is different than the rest of the country, you look at a state like New Hampshire, this is an issue where she is wide open. And Republicans, for whatever reason, have been hesitant to go after Democrats on this issue. But Scott Brown has taken a bite at the apple. I think it's going to pay off for him.
And the Democrats, who are usually so good at long-term politics, I'll guarantee you, a year ago, none of them were thinking this would be a big problem in New Hampshire, or in the Northeast, or in Tennessee, or in Kentucky. But then they started shipping these kids to other states. They've dropped this issue in the laps of Republicans running in this very place and given them a gift that they, and thankfully Brown is exploiting that. I wouldn't have shot the commercial with him narrating it. I might have made it a little more dynamic than that, because he's kind of even keel. But yeah, this is a gift that's been given to the Republicans, and hopefully they can exploit it.
Is this smart politics, Michelle?
I think so. Like you said, there's the new poll out that shows that half of Americans want these kids sent home immediately. And only 28% of Americans think that Obama's doing a good job when it comes to immigration. So people are really unhappy, and this is not just affecting people at border states. This is affecting everyone in the country. And even people who don't really pay attention to the news are still hearing about this crisis happening at the border. So I think it's a good issue that they should really pound the Democrats on. Right now, Obamacare just isn't in the news, and that, you know, they should pivot to immigration and start talking about this more.
All right, now it's time to turn our attention to the upcoming midterm elections. We're now less than 100 days away. Wow, time is just flying by. That means the campaign trail is going to be heating up. Here are now 4 keys to conservatives winning in November, and Michelle, you're up first.
Okay, so Michelle Obama tells Democrats they need to take this year's midterm elections more seriously than they did with either her husband's presidential elections and the last election. She made the comments in a new video for the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee. The First Lady says equal pay, immigration, and an increase in the minimum wage are reasons Democrats need to get involved. Take a look.
Everywhere I go, I talk to people like you about the issues they care about. Issues like equal pay for women, immigration reform, raising the minimum wage, and ensuring that women can make their own decisions about their bodies and their health care. My husband is working so hard on all of these issues, but he needs leaders in Congress who will work with him, leaders who care about what's going on in your lives and who will fight for you every single day. So when it comes to the midterm elections this November, we need you to be as passionate and as hungry as you were back in 2008 and 2012. In fact, you need to be even more passionate and more hungry to get Democrats elected to Congress, because these elections will be even harder and even closer than those presidential elections. Now, we're talking about races that are won and lost by just a few thousand votes or even a few hundred votes. So today, I'm asking you to go to 1millionvotesfor2014.com. and tell me that you're committing to vote in 2014. And while you're there, sign up to get involved in your community so that you can make sure that your friends, family, and neighbors are registered and ready to vote too. Together, we want to reach 1 million new voter commitments by Election Day, because it's simple. You deserve a Congress that will work for you and your family. So, go to 1millionvotesfor2014.com, make a commitment to vote this November, and do your part to keep moving this country forward. Thanks.
I love that they get Michelle Obama to do it instead of President Obama, since he has such low approval ratings. What do you think about Michelle Obama jumping into the midterm elections?
I think she's open to criticism. I think that they like to say that she's beyond reproach. You can't criticize her. She's the first lady. She's not a political actor. Yet they put her in expressly political ads because her husband's so unpopular that he wouldn't motivate anyone to do anything at this point. So you can't play both sides of the coin. Either she's political or she's apolitical. And they've liked to play her off as apolitical, but I don't know how you can do that when she's out cutting ads like the one that she just cut.
And there's also the fact that she got where she is, her husband got where he is. It's all a cult of personality, and that since he's not on the ballot in this election, it's not going to work for him. It's not going to. It's all the turnout in 2012, in 2008. It's all because they were there to vote for the new prom king, and that's not happening. There is no dynamic figure at the top. It's just, plus look at the messaging. That's worse than the Republicans. 1 million votes in 2014 in case you wear a blue shirt with the wrong shoes.com. That thing went on forever.
Yeah, no kidding. And you know what? The places where they need the votes, there's no more votes to be mined. Try getting 1 million votes in Alaska.
Yeah.
Or, Montana, Louisiana. That's where the fight is this time around.
And unless a bunch of people move from Manhattan right away.
Yeah. All right, another key to conservatives winning in November are Republican governors who have strong economic plans who can help pave the path to re-election. The GOP is calling on governors who have turned around the financial situation in their states to step to the forefront. 10 of the 15 states with the lowest unemployment rates have Republican governors. They're cutting taxes, lowering spending, balancing budgets, reforming education, supporting pro-business policies. For the 10th year in a row, Texas has been named the best state to do business in. The governor of Texas is Rick Perry, of course, who's a Republican and perennial candidate for president. I'm telling you, this is the success story that the Republicans need to tout. These states are well off. These states are, they have popular Republican governors. A lot of them are purple states. A lot of them are blue states that still elect Republican governors. This is where the Republicans need to find their next presidential nominee. Go to one of the states that has a great story to tell and say, let's do this at the national scale. But you need to start setting the stage in the midterm election for the next presidential election.
Yes.
They need to run on their records. They need to make sure that everybody knows what's going on in the states.
But not just, I know a lot of these guys want to run for president in 2016, but what the Republicans need to do right now is not just get the governors up there talking about numbers. We talk about numbers and economics and blah, 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 and stats all the time, and it doesn't work. Get the people who have benefited from these policies to tell their stories on camera. That's a lot more powerful.
All right, Cruiser, you're up next.
Okay, stop talking about impeachment. House Speaker John Boehner says a possible lawsuit and impeachment of President Obama is a scam started by Democrats. He said they are doing this to help raise funds ahead of the midterm elections. The threat of an impeachment sent millions of dollars to the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee since last week. We've talked about this before. It's true, Steve Israel said he has made a lot of money off of this, but I tell you, I monitor a lot of activists and people on our side, and a lot of them are talking about impeachment too. Everybody needs to stop talking about impeachment.
Well, Sarah Palin's the one that started the ball rolling on this. And you know what? She has different motivations than John Boehner. John Boehner has to win elections. Sarah Palin has to get subscribers to her channel online. So she can say things without having any consequences that John Boehner and congressional Republicans can. And you know, if she motivates the Democrats to send $1 million to the DCCC or the DNC, you know, that's no skin off her back. It slits John Boehner's throat, though.
Fourth and final key, this is a big one. Send some money to Joni Ernst, okay? Joni Ernst could start a landslide night for the GOP if she wins. She's competing against Democratic U.S. Congressman Bruce Braley for the U.S. Senator Tom Harkin seat. She's calling for expanded military, better health care, for medical care for veterans, tax breaks for all Americans, and to fix Social Security. She's also a guardswoman. She just got off 2 weeks of duty and is back on the campaign trail right now. This would be a huge pickup for the GOP, and she's slightly ahead of Braley right now in the Real Clear Politics average polling right now. So if you got any spare cash to send to a candidate, send it to Joni Ernst.
I think that election is key.
Yes.
That election is key. If the Republicans win that, they probably win Arkansas, they win Alaska, they win Louisiana.
Floodgates
they
open.
Win
yeah.
Maybe New Hampshire. I think you're really going to see them run the table. Kay Hagan's probably gone. All right, we want to be part of your election coverage. It's easy because it's right at your fingertips. The Grid is your one-stop shop to get all of your election coverage. It's powered by PJ Media and brings you insightful reports in real time. You can access it anytime at home, at work, on your smartphone, wherever you want to get it, you can get it. Be sure to visit grid.pjmedia.com and you can see it right in front of your face. Well, now you can see me, but before you could see it, you'd probably rather look at that than me. Anyway, that's going to do it for today's show. Now you can look at Cruiser. What are your thoughts? Now you can look at Michelle. Look at that. We can keep this going all day long. Who else is in the room? Oh, that's it. We can't keep it going all day long. All right, we want to know what you think, so leave your comments in the comments section below. I'm John Phillips for Stephen Cruiser, joining me here in Los Angeles, and Michelle Fields in Washington, D.C. Thanks so much for watching The Rundown.